Hello, I'm Patrick Pfeiffer, and you are watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com. Nobody else. It's ForBassPlayersOnly.com.
Hi, everyone. I'm John Leapman. You're watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com, where I've taken the frustration out of learning bass so you could build confidence, have fun, and just enjoy making music, even with things like sore muscles, achy joints, and just getting older. It's not for everyone. It's ForBassPlayersOnly.com. We have a very special guest this week. And I don't think we've ever actually met. I know we've communicated over the years via email and electronically. Patrick Pfeiffer is a bassist, a composer, a clinician, author, and educator. His students have included everyone from Adam Clayton of U2 to Alec of Bon Jovi, to name but a couple. His favorite instrument is a fretless 6-string electric bass, and he describes his style as a distinctive blend of percolating percussive notes that weave into the complex fabric of a groove and can unexpectedly soar with vocal-like quality. I like that. I can't wait to talk, which is I'm going to do in a minute. I just want to tell the people a little bit more about you. Patrick has performed and or recorded with quite a cross-section of various genres, including everyone from George Clinton to Phoebe Snow, Slam Stewart. How'd he get in there? Birdie, Al Meola, Sheila Jordan, Joe Lovano, the Marvelettes. I'm trying to weave some kind of thread through these people to find some common ground. Maybe you can help me. Hello, Patrick. How are you?
I'm fine, John. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us. It's a bit overdue, so I'm glad you're here. I want to start from the beginning because I thought maybe you were from New York, then I thought maybe Arizona, and then I heard your accent, and I said, he's not from either one of those places. So tell us about the early days and your initial exposure to music. How would you describe your musical upbringing?
Well, it's interesting. Like I told you before, I'm a recovering German, and growing up in a German family, it was kind of old-fashioned, old school, I should say. And the requirements for being in that kind of family was that in addition to your studies, you would have to learn one musical instrument and one athletic discipline. And that was simply a requirement. Nobody ever questioned it. And, that's how it went.
What part of Germany?
The what?
What part of Germany?
It was back then, it was West Germany. I was born in Bremen, way up north. And lived most of my life in the Frankfurt area. My father was he's still around, but he retired. He is a former pilot for Lufthansa. And so Frankfurt was the international hub. And that's generally where we resided, in the vicinity.
Do you know where Machnerkirchen is?
The what?
Yeah, even people from Germany don't know Machnerkirchen. It's right near the Czech border.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that I'm not familiar with it.
About a 4.5-hour drive from Frankfurt, which is much nicer when the vehicle has air conditioning than when. Anyway, I was invited to the Warwick base camps. I went there about 3 times, and I went to the Music Messe in Frankfurt also one time. But forgive me for interrupting. Please continue.
Oh, not at all, not at all. So I picked my musical instrument, and I started very young. It was I was probably 3.5, and I started on xylophone, playing Haydn's Kindersinfonie. And then went on to the piano, which I just could not come to terms with. I studied with a Frau Hosang, it
sounds intimidating. I don't know what it means, but
yeah, well, it's directly translated means sing high or something like that, and it was just not my cup of tea, and I was really battling with the instrument, and I was in fact if my parents hear this interview, they're going to be really pissed at me. But here it goes. I was one of those kids. It's like I had to practice. There was a requirement. I had to practice an hour a day. And so I would have my best friend over and we'd hang out in my room and I would practice for half an hour and he would record it on a cassette tape. And then he would play it back so that my parents downstairs would think I'm practicing and we were playing like board games or whatever. And then after the hour, I was done. And that was that. I'll be paying for this one dearly.
I can't believe you never got caught. I mean, come on.
I was good at cutting those kinds of corners. There are a few instances more, but some other time. So
then, you had a piano in your bedroom, or was this the xylophone still?
No, it was a piano in the bedroom. The xylophone was just to like when I was like just past toddler age, basically.
Piano in your bedroom?
Yeah.
A concert grand?
No, it was just an upright. And then when I was about 11, I'm a child of the 60s, so it's like, of course, what was happening, and I know you love them too, it's the Beatles, and so I became a rapid Beatles fan, and it's like just getting into the preteens, the opposite sex was becoming rather important. And I was watching these Beatles movies like Help and The Hard Day's Night, and the guy who was getting all the chicks was Paul McCartney. So I'm going like, I'm playing the wrong instrument, man. I got to play bass. And the rule was in my family, so you could pick the instrument. It had to be one. You had to play it. You had to practice an hour a day. You could pick whatever instrument you wanted. So I said, Mom, Dad, I found my calling. I want to be a bass player. I want to play bass, And I got lucky because and that's a rather big investment because back then it's like you not only had to get the bass guitar, but you also had to get the amplifier and everything that went with it. And it wasn't like today. It was what if I lose interest in a couple of months, and you're saddled with this stuff. But there was a tradition in Germany that a veteran bass player would pass on his instrument, his old instrument that's been passed on to him when he got a new instrument. And I was fortunate to be the recipient of one of those. Rainer Hoffmann was the bass player in the Lufthansa Orchestra. And my mother chatted him up at one of those parties, and she said, it's like Patrick has expressed an interest in bass. And you have an old bass, you just got your new bass. Would I be able to buy that from you? And there was an upright bass. He said, yes, I just got an older bass, but you can't buy the old one from me. I'm going to give it to him. So the next morning there was this big bass in my bedroom. And there was one of the very, very few days that I was late for school, because this was just awesome. And I fell head over heels in love with the instrument. I just loved it. I played along with recordings. In fact, I remember every bit of it. It's like I played along with recordings of Harry Belafonte's records. It was a nice straightforward bass line, and then the bass line for Octopus's Garden. Like doom 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 doom. It was great. And then of course I graduated eventually to Beatles songs, sang along with it, and all that stuff, and had a duo that expanded to a band with my best friend, and played all the time. In fact, I remember we had this big cherry tree in the yard, and we would get the entire band up there with the bass being in the middle of the branches, upright, like I said, and the guitars in a big branch each, and we would
climb the tree with the instrument.
Oh yeah, we did crazy stuff. So,
do you have any pictures of that?
No, I don't. So and that was that. We played and sang Beatles tunes. We had our Beatles type band and played our originals, wrote originals, and so on and so forth. And then a time came, like I was in my mid-teens, and it was kind of like, well, what do you want to be? You know, when you grow up. And I've always been torn up to that point between being a pilot like my father or being a musician. And it would have been a very difficult choice. But what happened was I outgrew the cockpit. I'm 6'7", and back then that was like, I think this limit was somewhere in the 6'5" region or something like that. That was the absolute max, and it was becoming very obvious that I was outgrowing that. So that choice was becoming clear, and then I wanted to become a musician. So I started getting information about pursuing music in Germany, and back then it was, well, you will play classical music. It has always been done this way. It will always be done this way. And if you're good enough, we let you minor in jazz. And it was a you know, I first of all, I'm not good at classical, you know, but also I was a rock and roller, and becoming a jazz head, you know, and it just, that wasn't where my passion was. So at 16, my father became chief pilot and manager of the flying school for Lufthansa in Arizona, in Phoenix, Arizona. So at 16, the whole family moves to Phoenix, Arizona, and it was, you know, I was entering my senior year in high school. I skipped a couple of grades because school systems were so different, you know, that I was actually overcredited, but I had to have some requirements like Arizona history, US history, stuff like that. And my homeroom was band, jazz band one. And that was Thunderbird High School in Phoenix, Arizona. And I remember the first tune that I played here, and I was still on upright, was Theme from Barney Miller.
Oh.
That's right. And I thought, my God, these guys are playing this stuff in big band. It was just the most awesome thing. You know, it was just great.
On the electric?
Eventually on the electric, but I was just like, I was doubling back then, you know, but initially it was on the upright. I was still finding my way. It's a difficult, yeah.
I know, I've played it many times. It's enough.
See, exactly. I figured you did. I still love it. It's sentimental value, but also more than that. You know, it's really, I really like, you know, that thing. And then I ended my senior year in high school. Had to think about, okay, now what? And I found out that at ASU, Arizona State University, you could study jazz. It was jazz performance, and I was stunned that this was even possible. It's like you can really major in jazz, and that's your major. And it was an eye opener. So it's like it was fantastic. And of course, at that point, my trail was set. You know, my path was set. This is what I wanted to do. And I got the talk from my father. And I just looked at him from the passenger side. You know, so one of the big old cars with a bench in the front. You know, I said, "Dad, I am your son. I am just as stubborn as you are. And not only am I going to major in jazz, I am going to major in jazz performance, so that I have to make it and have no escape hatch in case I don't, and go to teach." And that was that. So I enrolled at ASU, became a jazz performance major, played my way through it, and it was amazing. It was really amazing.
What were bass influences once you discovered the instrument? Who were you listening to?
Well, initially it was certainly Paul McCartney. That was the initial influence, and still is a big part of my playing. The melodicism, and I call it the 8 styles of Paul McCartney. that he uses in accompanying tunes, ranging from groove to counter melody to unison lines, pumping eight notes, and so on and so forth. I have immense respect. Other than Paul, well, once I hit school, and then I came exposed to Jaco. Jaco just blew me away, and is the number one influence for me. And I enjoyed your Jaco book very much, by the way.
Thank you.
Oh, it's wonderful. So I bought it like right away, and really enjoyed it.
Okay.
And so Jaco is a huge influence for me, and this is also the reason I play fretless. And then besides Jaco, who probably fits in very nicely, is Francis Rocco Prestia. His lines in Tower of Power, covering all those 16th notes and the dynamics that he's using, the dead notes, ghost notes, the real note. There's a real dynamic display, and it comes very natural. He was not one steeped in music theory or anything like that. He just did it out of feel and soul and guts, and responding to David Garibaldi on drums, who is just like doing wonderful work on it. And I suspect in order to not miss any of Garibaldi's hits, he just covered all the 16th notes, and that was that. And then finally, and this is from your neck of the woods now, James Jamerson. Yeah, so James Jamerson is another huge influence, because whenever I think, or whenever somebody tells me, "Hey, bass player, simplify," and I'm thinking, it's bullshit. James Jamerson didn't simplify, and he played on more hits than you can ever dream of producing. So I think those are the four.
You said some kind things about one of my books. Thank you very much. I want to say to you, somebody had to be lucky enough to get the contract from John Wiley and Sons to write the book, Bass Guitar for Dummies, and you are the one that got that contract. How did that come about? How did you get it?
I was incredibly lucky. I always had good people around me, good friends, good acquaintances, and it's like I couldn't do it without my friends, my students, my family, and all that. And what happened was, one day I got a call from one of my old students who moved. I was in New York City, and she had moved to the West Coast. And she says, "Hey, Patrick, I passed on your name. The Dummies people are looking for somebody to write a bass book." I was approached by the agent who was looking. And back then it was Hungry Minds was the publisher, which I love that name, Hungry Minds. And Matt is going to call you. This is a very big deal. I ended up getting the contract, and I knew this is one person in the world gets to write this book. This book will be read by hundreds of thousands of bass players. I have a huge responsibility to get this right and to make this the best, really make this the best resource for bass players that I can come up with to lead people, along on their path. So I took it very, very, very seriously. But it turned out to be a excellent book. I'm very proud of it, and I wrote the second edition and the third edition as well. And but I also have to say it was the hardest thing I have ever done. I temporarily wrecked my health, just like with the all-nighters and all-dayers and whatnot. And it was not an enjoyable experience. Having written, however, is a whole other story.
I hear you. I feel it.
I know you.
When I was working on the book that you mentioned, Play Like Jaco Pastorius, I'd come up from the basement and I was shaking my head. My wife said, "What's the matter?" And I just sighed and I said, "Jocko." Because I didn't realize at first, or maybe I did, but I forgot that they also needed me to record all of the bass.
That's right.
5 complete songs. Those were Birdland, Teen Town, I don't know, Come On, Come Over, and,
Yes.
A couple others, and then a Dry Cleaner from Des Moines. And
Hey, yes.
and then they contacted me in the middle of that, and they said, "Hold off on that book for a minute, because we have another book, and it's a Jocko play along, and we want you to play all the bass tracks on that." And there was a little bit of overlap, but there was some stuff that wasn't in the other book. So I finished recording that, and they said, "Okay, now go back and finish the Play Like Jocko."
Wow. Yeah, that's a feat. Yeah, that play along is because you want to do it justice, and can't use the originals. So it's like, yeah, no, it's I know what you mean. It's like I ran into that a bit as well, trying to do justice to those lines and yet just to get it right.
Did something. Jocko did something that's almost impossible to do, because there's one particular harmonic. What is it on?
E flat. It's the E flat in Portrait of Tracy.
You have to put your finger on the 2nd fret on the A string, and then
the B.
Like on the
E flat, exactly. There's another way to do it though. You can do the thumb just past the pickup.
Everything. Last chord there was it also Portrait of Tracy?
Oh, the last chord. You're putting the finger crossing on the 10th would be fret. Well, he did it on fret actually. 10th fret. Pinky goes on the 13th fret, and then it's the top 3 strings or something like that. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I know.
Anyway.
Yes. So we're geeking out. That's great, though.
It's players only, they get it. So tell me about your gear.
Oh, I have. I play at this point. I only play 6-string fretless basses because they really take everything I've got to keep them on a like really high level of playing.
You and Steve Bailey.
Yes, Steve Bailey and Alain Caron and and so it's I just play those, and I have I only use 2 bass types, and it's the MTDs. Michael Tobias is a really dear friend of mine. He is like one of my idols.
And Daniel too has come a long way.
The what?
Daniel, his son Daniel.
Yes, I know Daniel has, exactly. Well, that was so nice to see that he was teaching Daniel, because Michael is relentless. He is like so filled with integrity. It's I admire this man. I really do. And so I knew Daniel was going to get the proper training, and he did. He's turning out some beautiful instruments.
So I interviewed Mike, and I did one interview with both of them, actually.
Yes, you did. I saw that. Yep.
I said to Michael, I said, "Now, I'm sure Daniel has learned a lot from you over the years." He said, "Yes, he has." I said, "What did you learn from him?" And he goes, "Patience."
I knew it. That's exactly right. He's wonderful. It's like I've visited him quite often. He lives up well, it's Kingston, by Kingston, and has his workshop in his driveway, basically, and I've seen him sand down a just about finished neck, and he wasn't happy with it. And he threw it out. He threw it in the trash. Where it's like a lot of other people would have tried to make it work. It was just simply, he just like, it didn't pass muster. It was just like, at that moment, I was just like, wow, that's impressive.
When he was out in California, I called him up. I took a tour of his shop, and he was on Cahuenga Street out in LA.
Yeah.
showed me all around because I had just come from New York and I went into, I missed 48th Street. That was the first place we all went, all the music stores. And I went into Rudy's and they had a 5-string.
That's right.
It wasn't MTD. It was Mike Tobias. It was
That's right.
And I fell in love with it. And I went out to, I said, hey, we're going to be in LA like tomorrow or next week. I'll go out there and I'm going to see Michael Tobias. And I called him up. He showed me around and he says, we got this kind of wood, this kind of wood, this kind of wood. And I'll build anything you want. But once it's built, you know. And I said, I wish you could make me one like the one I played at Rudy's. And he said, well, if you like that one so much, call us. You got it. I called him up, gave him my credit card over the phone. I was living in Miami at the time, went home to Miami, and it was there waiting for me. And then I had to build me another one, a fretless 5-string.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I love it. It's very much.
He's truly amazing and just an awesome human being. You know, the whole family is the whole family. And then the other bass that I have is Fodera. Fodera 6-string fretless. And it was basically Jason DeSalvo was part of that company, and he was also a student of mine, and of course friend. Yep. And he said basically, look, he was again just an awesome human being because I remember him approaching me and saying, look, we don't want to get between you and Michael. It's like, we know you're friends and this is the last thing we want, but we would like you to have one of our instruments in your arsenal. And it was a really beautiful introduction. It's just like, you know, they're really special people, very friendly from the heart, you know, and just really awesome, you know. And they built me a beautiful 6-string fretless, and those are my basses, you know. So it's like that's all I have. I have a fretted MTD also in the closet, but I haven't had it out in years now. So it's like I haven't been fretting it in a while.
Yeah. You're an educator. I'm an educator. Let's talk bass education because people come from all over the world too for ForBassPlayersOnly.com. We're in pretty much all 50 states and I don't know how many countries all around the world. And most of the people that I'm attracting are men in their 50s, 60s, 70s, sometimes even older. They're not trying to be rock stars. They're not trying to set the world on fire. They've always wanted to do this, or they've always wanted to play an instrument, or maybe they've dabbled in it. They just want to play some classic rock riffs with their buddies or some blues shuffles, maybe a little walking bass, maybe some funk R&B, a little slapping, you know, just for enjoyment. And a lot of times they are dealing, you know, when you get to be that age, things like arthritis, tendinitis, sometimes they're recovering from surgery. Sometimes they're just, you know, pains in the shoulder, the neck, the hands. So now that I've sort of given you the context, what advice can you share with those people who are coming to For Bass Players Only who want to learn bass, or for anybody in that situation who wants to learn bass? What do you think they should know?
The best thing I can think of, this is something that they probably have intuitively, is like when we play music, when it's just right, okay, it's like a musical nirvana. There is this moment of absolute musical bliss, and that's why we play music. So it's like for the older guys, they sense that there is something that they can access that they can't otherwise access. It's like that kind of high just comes from just hitting the right vibration, the right groove, the right everything, when everything just lines up, everybody's in the same good mood. If it's an audience, them as well, and it's just like, I mean, the world disappears and everything is beautiful, you know? And I think that's what the older cats go for. And I will do anything I can to make it happen for them.
How do you get there?
How do what?
How do you get there to this?
How do you get there? You get your technique out of your way, and you get your brain out of the way, because this stuff feeds the soul and the heart. It sounds very philosophical, but that's truly how I feel. It is such a deep connection that I can't adequately describe it. So the way to get there is with a very efficient practice method, and that means finger exercises, permutations, and also applied theory. So, for example, playing an arpeggio is not just playing an arpeggio, but if you're playing an arpeggio, let's say you have a C major chord, and then you're playing an E minor arpeggio, that sounds good if you're soloing. You see, when you're grooving, of course, you're staying in C. There are different things, and that's what you apply the theory to. So there's an applied section in your practice routine, and then having this under your fingers so well that you don't have to think about what your hand has to do. That it is like bicycle riding. It's just like we get on a bike after years of not having ridden, and it comes back. It's a little rusty at first, but we catch on pretty quickly. And there's a deep muscle memory involved and whatnot, And I think that is the thing to strive for here. Of course, what it does take is a mixture of discipline and creativity, or the discipline of creativity. So it's basically it's a you got to take care of business, and then you can express yourself, and you're better. So that's what I would how I would approach the older crowd. And yeah.
But even when you get to the creative part, you can't forget about the theory and the brain part. You still have to be maintaining that to some extent.
Oh yeah. No, you're constantly maintaining this. I have a practice routine that I do to this day, and I know my theory, but I have to keep it fluid. I have to keep it fluid so that it's subconscious rather than conscious. So in other words, it's a shallow conscious. It's like I may think of a C major arpeggio or something like that, or a C13 or whatever, But then my hand takes over. So it's a group thought process, which means you're not thinking of each individual note, but you're thinking of the note block and how it relates to the overall tonality.
The gestalt.
Gestalt. Oh, wonderful. That's right. That's right. Dankeschön. Very good. Exactly.
That is very important.
The worst thing that somebody can do, well, not the worst thing, but a very inefficient thing is practice the stuff you're good at. Well, you're good at that. Pick the stuff that you suck at.
Right.
And if you have trouble getting to that point, then get to a teacher who will tell you, look, in nice words, you're going to have to work on this. This is what we have to work on. I'll help you with that. But there's a hole here that you need to fill. There's a hole here that you need to fill. You do very well with this stuff, and you got great mechanics, but here is our work, and that is important. It's not just a matter of picking up a book and we write them and we do what we can, but the thing is, these guys a lot of times don't know what they really need. And it depends. It's different for everybody.
I have another question for you.
Oh, good.
Last question for you. What would you be if you weren't a bass player? Something outside of music.
Oh, I would say probably a tree.
I've gotten a lot of answers. I've never gotten that one.
I figured a red leaf maple would be good, That's a tough one. That is a really tough one. I would I would probably try my hands on writing. I have a passion for books. Now that I can actually write fairly well, it's not so distant anymore. But it is still. I don't know. See, this is the thing. When I was growing up, my two passions were music and books. And when I became a professional musician, that turned into something else, because now when I listen to music, I go there. So if the radio is playing and you try to talk to me, don't bother.
Just like me.
Yes, I know, of course, And it's maddening to people around us, they say, you're not listening. Well, actually I am, just not to anything but what's on the radio, it's just like, and that's so that, and it has become very distinctive. So it's like good music and bad music, and the tolerance gets like smaller and smaller. It's like there's so many factors that matter. Music matters. Music really, really matters to people like us. It's not just, hey, can you play Happy Birthday? My aunt's birthday. It's like, well, it's like, I'll give you a solo bass version of that. How's that? Well, I thought so.
What a lot of great information. Thank you so much, Patrick. It's so great catching up with you. And we'll there's more that we can talk about. I'm sure we can keep going and going. So why don't we plan to do a follow-up interview when the time is right?
That sounds wonderful, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity and to talk with you and your community. And kudos to you. It's like I have great respect and admiration for the work you do for you, and I'm very appreciative to be here. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for your kind words, and I feel the same about you. A longtime admirer.
Thank you. Likewise.
Does that make me a closet dummy, or I don't know? I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman of ForBassPlayersOnly.com, where I've taken the frustration out of learning bass so you can build confidence, have fun, and just enjoy making music, even with things like sore muscles, achy joints, and just getting older. Special thanks once again to our very special guest this week, Patrick Pfeiffer. Keep doing what you're doing, Patrick, and we will keep enjoying it. As for the rest of you, thank you for joining me again, and we will see you all next week. This is ForBassPlayersOnly.com, and I will see you all next week.